You've arrived at Paranormal M, where every flickering light has a reason. We explore haunted tales that might just mirror your own experiences. Subscribe and ring the bell. The next story might already be happening to you. Haunted Pizza Hut. I used to work for Pizza Hut for almost 5 years, and I've worked at about 10 different locations. I've had my fair share of encounters at some of them. This story takes place at the first location I ever worked at. It was a new location in a small strip mall, and after being there for a few months, I was promoted to shift manager. Now, when you walked into the store, it was very long, and you could see the back door all the way from the front door. The kitchen was very open. We had a walk-in fridge, and across from the fridge door was the dishwasher. The layout is important to get kind of a visual on how this went down. And on the other side of the fridge, they were the retarder doors. They give you quick access into the fridge. And by the way, that was also next to the dishwasher. So one morning, me and my cook came in, opened the store together. Uniform policy was we had to dress in all black, hat, shirt, pants, and shoes. I was standing at the back door, which was just past the dishwasher and walk-in. Throwing the previous night's trash outside, my cook was knelt down at the retarder doors, putting away product. That's when all of a sudden she came running back to me in a huge panic and asked, "Did you just walk up to the dishwasher and then walk back?" I responded with, "No, I've honestly been back here just chucking all this garbage out the door. Why?" And that's when she told me that while she was knelt down, she saw out of the corner of her eye a black object walk to the dishwasher, stop, turned around, and then walked back to where I was. That was definitely the most terrifying thing to happen to me at that location. But other things, like random objects being moved and hearing the bathroom door open and close, even though I'd be the only person in the whole store, would also always happen. Pop's last visit. Backstory for context. At the age of 3, my grandma was hit by a truck and crushed all the bones, muscles, and nerves in her foot. She had emergency surgery where they took a muscle from her thigh and grafted it to her foot so she could still function. This played a massive role in her life, not being able to walk properly, hold a job for very long, and look after her kids to the full extent. My pop, on the other hand, was a fit man. Even at the age of almost 80, he was still out walking up to 5 kilometers a day. He worked as a builder and a truck driver and a sheet metal fabricator and plastic molder throughout all of his life. He retired and took full care of Grandma at the age of 70. In 2014, Grandma's foot got infected, went into a coma for 13 days. Pop said his goodbyes and went through the hard times. Grandma recovered. In 2015, Grandma's foot got infected again and had to get it amputated. Doctors have her maybe a 20% chance of waking up after the surgery. We all said our goodbyes and we were very sad and preparing for the worst. But Pop just kept making the mood light. He was cheering up all the great grandkids. That was just the kind of person he was. All his family loved him to bits, and he was just the greatest man. Grandma survived again. Through all of this time, Pop was the one that had held the family together when he had every right to be the one hurting the most. In 2017, Pop was diagnosed with asbestos lung cancer from all those years ago that he worked as a builder. He kept his high spirits even at the time when he had been given a time frame. My wife and her family, we live in a different state. So in September of 2017, we video Grandma and Pop and tell them that they're to expect another great grandbaby. Pop burst into tears. He was so excited. He just loved children. All the kids in the neighborhood knew of George. Fast forward to March. We have our little girl, and Pop is so excited to meet her. We pack up the car with our oldest newborn and set out to make the journey to go visit. On our way there, we get a call saying Pop has gone into the hospital and is in bad health. Pop calls us and tells us he's made the hard but necessary decision to not let any of the great-grandkids to see him like that. I still go and visit him, and we have a good chat, and I video call my wife so he can see the baby. He's so heartbroken that he didn't get to hold his youngest, but he knows it was the right decision. That's the kind of person he was. Didn't want baby to get sick from the hospital. A few weeks later, I'm cooking dinner, and my daughter, who's now 3 weeks old, randomly starts hysterically laughing. I think it was her first time really laughing. Not 20 minutes later, we get a phone call from Mom. It's one of those feelings that you know exactly what the call is about. Pop had passed away about a half an hour ago. My wife and I have a cry, but baby can't stop laughing. I know my Pop was there. Finally got to talk and play with his youngest grandbaby. It was his way of saying to us not to be sad. We miss him dearly. I have a picture of him out on the wall so our girls growing up kind of know who he was. I'm so grateful for Pop's last visit. What was it? This story's hard for anybody who didn't really see what happened to believe it. Sometimes it's still hard for me to believe. But I'm hoping somebody on here can relate or explain. About 3 years ago, I was in my hometown with some friends, and it was around 12 at night. We were near these soccer fields in our town. There were 6 of us packed into a vehicle. We were at the top of this hill that overlooked the soccer fields, and at the edge of the fields was a thick tree line. As a group of kids about to head to college after that summer, you can probably imagine what we were all doing there at that time of night. There's one reason nobody believes, really any of us, when we tell them that all 6 of us saw this thing. Anyways, I'm in the middle row of seats, and we're all talking and laughing and just doing our thing. And all of a sudden, the 2 people in the front start to freak out, and I mean like panic. Scared, kind of freaked out. They started saying that we should go, because they saw something really weird in the tree line across from us. We all laughed at them and blew it off and continued what we were doing. A couple of minutes later, the 2 people next to me start to also say that they saw whatever it was in the tree line. And at this point, I'm getting nervous too. I still hadn't seen what they were talking about. I asked what it looked like. They told me it looked like a big blue person. I laughed so hard I thought my friends were all on some kind of trick to make me scared or something. But then they made me keep looking where they had seen the entity. About 2 minutes passed, and as we all sat there in silence waiting, I saw it. Across on the tree line, what looked like a transparent yet solid blue being slowly stepped out of the trees. It looked like there was energy flowing through his human-like body. It was a light yet bold blue color. The entity had to be 7 or 8 feet tall. We all confirmed, and we were all seeing the same thing and described it to each other. The being stood there for a minute, turned around, went into the woods. Waited there in disbelief for a while before deciding we should get out of there. I tell a lot of people about this story in hopes that one day somebody will believe what happened or give some sort of explanation. The first time I had real goosebumps and ran. A couple of years ago, I lived with my parents and a few other family members. I've lived with them for the majority of my life. It was a normal day in the suburbs. Sun was out and it was early afternoon. I vividly remember this day because it was the closest thing I ever had to something paranormal happen to me in my life. I had just taken a shower. I could hear my cousins having lunch downstairs. Now, I know I'm not the only one, but there are times where I talk to myself when I'm alone or even pretend I'm some sort of fictional character, just for the heck of it. Anyway, at this moment, it was one of those moments. Before I continue, I'd like to explain that each room has a ceiling fan, but only my room and the master bedroom are quote-unquote remote controlled. So I'm walking out of the shower and into my room and jokingly said, "Fan on," out loud, and I kid you not, the ceiling fan started to spin in full force. There's a slight click before the fan turns on, which indicates the remote signaled fan to turn on, and the second I heard that and I saw the fan actually turn on, I felt like the hair on the back of my neck ride, and I ran like a bitch downstairs to where my cousins were. And I was just telling them what happened, and my first instinct was, okay, well, maybe it was a prank and they had the remote. But one, everybody was downstairs, and two, they couldn't have heard me from downstairs anyway. And three, both remotes were not removed from the wall outlet. Note, the remote for each fan's like specific to one fan. As an example, if I took the remote for the master bedroom fan and turned it on in my room, it would just only turn on the master bedroom fan. Till this day, I never knew how this happened at the exact moment I said "fan on" out loud. And come to think of it now, if it was somebody trying to prank me, they wouldn't have known I was going to say that in the first place. Told you it sounds too crazy to be true, but I'm telling you it is. Current experiences in my new apartment. I've always been super sensitive to energy and vibes, if you want to put it that way. Me and my wife just moved into a new apartment about a month ago. It's a small one-bed, one-bath. It's upstairs in a 2-story complex. When we first moved in, I did get some bad energy from the place. I ignored it since both of us loved the look and the layout. And one thing I really noticed really early on is that there's this crawl space in one of our bedroom closets. It's about 2 feet wide, and the lid's too heavy to be moved by anything smaller than a person. The first week or two was chill. We only heard some small noises that we just contributed to our cats being goobers. I thought goobers meant old lady. It started escalating in week 3. We started hearing loud footsteps coming from the ceiling. That's when we have no one living above us. We would even hear it at 1 or 2 a.m., so we know it's not somebody working on the roof. After that, we started hearing cabinets opening and closing. Really similar to how our cats open cabinets, but softer, and it happens when both of our cats are right in front of us. Some stuff has even been moved around. There's this little box we keep in the bathroom. It's been flipped up onto its side. The bathroom door was closed, and neither of the cats were inside. With the way it's shaped, it would be pretty much impossible for it to flip on its own. My wife has seen strange light patterns on the hallway ceiling that seem to come from nowhere, just random beams of light popping into existence. The most recent event happened last night. We're sitting on the couch watching Evil. It's an amazing show, by the way. We heard a loud bang come from her bedroom. Spooked both of us really bad. My hair was standing up on the back of my neck, and I had this gut feeling that something was wrong. I grabbed my gun. We had a break-in scare recently, and I keep it in the living room with us now. It's because my first thought was that somebody had broken into our apartment somehow. I carefully made my way to the bedroom, and I did a basic clear just to make sure that there wasn't anyone there. There wasn't, which honestly kind of scared me more. While I was clearing, I noticed that the lid to the crawl space had been fucking moved. There was a small pile of drywall dust on the shelf under it, and it was ajar. My wife grabbed the step stool from the kitchen so I could look in the crawl space and see if there were any critters up there. I popped it open, and it's only about a foot tall and too small for anybody to fit into. We both ended up sleeping in the living room last night. I talked with my mom this morning to see if she could get her pastor to come bless the house. I'm also wanting to get it saged and have one of my Wiccan friends come by and do her thing. I'm not personally religious myself or very spiritual, but I want to cover my bases. Sorry if the formatting's weird. Never been my strong suit. Do y'all have any thoughts or any recommendations? I played the Ouija board by myself. I've always somewhat believed in the paranormal since I've experienced some things when I was younger, but I won't go into that right now. About 5 or 6 months ago, 2 of my sisters were playing the Ouija board. They asked if I wanted to play it, and at first we were messing around with it because we didn't think it would actually work. Apparently it only started quote-unquote working when I was doing it, or at least doing it with them. They said that it wasn't doing anything or answering questions when only the 2 of them played. We asked basic questions such as, what's your name? And it always responded with different names like Quay or Quo or Key or random gibberish. I do have it written in a notebook somewhere. I don't know where it is. Anyways, the 3 of us did a few sessions over a few weeks, and I wanted to try it by myself. I know you're not supposed to do so, and I kind of regret doing so as well. I set up the board with a candle. They were beside me, and crystals, which my sister's friend gave us. I always played with a crystal in my hand, no clue if that does anything or not, but I'd like to think that it does. I lit the candles and I started playing by myself. Nothing was happening for a while. I closed the session and I tried again inviting spirits or entities and energies to communicate. Again, there's nothing. And I know there are a lot of stories of a Zozo energy associated with the Ouija board, and I have the bright idea of spelling his name out. The weirdest thing is that after I did that, it immediately started to respond to my questions. I'm not saying I contacted Zozo, or if it was a trickster spirit, which I feel like it mostly was probably a trickster. That's about it. I closed the session right after. Didn't really want to communicate to it if it actually was that spirit. A few extra things. Some spirits may seem random, like all of this happened over a month ago. So if you want clarification or have any questions, just comment or DM me. The reason why I think it was most likely a trickster is because of all the gibberish answers it gave us. It kept saying it knew us and they were family to us. It also said I was a psychic, which I have no clue if I am or not. I don't claim to be any sort of medium. It said I was a fallen angel, and then it stated God wasn't real. Also called my sister a bitch. It also claimed it was an angel trying to talk to me. When I was playing by myself, I had a candle lit, and I said, like I said, and... or perhaps... the candle lit side by side, next to her, like I said. And throughout the entire time I was playing by myself, the candle in the middle was super high, like a foot, maybe a bit less. It's kind of a candle holder with one in the middle and one on either side. And this is the only time it's done that. I don't know what to think about that. Also, a few days after I played, I just got out of the shower, and on my mirror in the bathroom there was a pentagram written from the steam of the shower. And this one got me. Like bad, I literally froze there. Wiped it away immediately and dressed myself as quickly as possible. Didn't even dry myself off. Anyways, that's what happened. Gus Lancaster, MD. Years ago, I worked at a print shop. It was in a small country town. The shop opened in a historic house in the town square. I spent the better part of a decade working there. Over my time there, I experienced many different unexplainable phenomena. Nothing quite so bold as the one and only time I locked eyes with an apparition. We didn't know much about the history of the shop, other than it had been a restaurant and a doctor's office prior to that. There wasn't much to be found online about the house other than the tax records that start in the 30s. The day I encountered the resident ghost, I knew it was the doctor. I just knew. I was working in my upstairs office. There were 2 workspaces. Mine had a view of the staircase. I always felt weird energy in the stairs, like I was being watched. Multiple times a day I would see from the corner of my eye shadows walking up the stairs and rounding the corner at the top to head toward my workspace. The area above the stairs was open with just a handrail separating the hall and the space above the staircase. I was walking from my room to the other, and as I approached the handrail, I locked eyes with a face floating above the stairs. The head and neck were just above the handrail. He was old, with a round, bald head and big ears. I'll never forget the look in his face. It was pure and utter confusion. I caught this image in passing, and as I blinked, I did a double take and it was gone. I wrote it off as my mind playing tricks on me and didn't tell very many people. Years went on with no other encounters. The business closed and sold. The new owners opened a quilting business and totally transformed the place. A few weeks ago, I just went back for the first time since they opened. The owners were so nice and, well, did lots of research. They found that there was a mishap with a filing at the courthouse. The house had been built by a doctor in the 1890s. His name was James Lancaster. He practiced out of the house and later passed the family business on to his son Gus. They also lived there and practiced medicine until the 60s. When I started telling the new owners about my ghost encounter, their eyes locked. They hurried me into the base of the staircase. It's where they had hung the only pictures they could find of James and Gus. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the photo of Gus Lancaster. I had seen that face once before, staring at me with a bewildered look from that exact same place in the staircase. Only now it was his picture. These new owners unknowingly hung the picture of the man whose ghost I had faced off with years before in the exact same spot where he was levitating. I always questioned what I had seen that day. Was my mind playing tricks on me? Now I know what I saw. I saw a ghost. My mom's medium friend said that there was an evil spirit around me. I don't go to bed early. I stay up late studying or chatting to my girlfriend and scrolling through my phone. Normally I fight sleep to talk to her, but for a few days now I haven't felt sleepy at all. I actually feel watched and anxious, like there's a presence in my room. It's disturbing. Sometimes I hear breathing near me, and I hold my breath to realize it's not me. And here at home, we sleep with the doors open. The rooms are close together, and I often hear my family snoring or even breathing. But lately, I've been wondering if it's really them. The worst thing is that the day before yesterday, I was tossing and turning in bed without any sleep, and I felt my hair being pulled. My heart raced, but I immediately thought that maybe my arm was on a stand, or maybe it had caught on the overhead switch to turn on the light at the head of the bed. I tried to find a rational explanation, but I got scared. I think the hair thing happened the same day my mother told me about her friend. My mother and I had been arguing a lot, but lately things had been better until the day of the hair incident. That's when she told me about it. Their friend said that I had an evil spirit leaning on me, and that it made me and my mother argue out of the blue. I wouldn't normally care, but knowing about the feeling of being watched and the insomnia, I kind of became paranoid. And the night she told me that, the hair incident happened. And to make matters worse, my cat who used to sleep in my bed stopped doing so. I've always heard that cats protect against spirits, and since this whole mess started, he stopped sleeping with me. He sleeps with whoever he wants, with me, with my mother on the sofa, and it varies. But I find it strange that he stopped sleeping with me, just when all this stuff started too. And although I'm skeptical about it all, I feel safer with him. I don't know if it's important, but on the day of the argument and the hair thing, before they both happened, my homemade bead necklace broke out of nowhere. Didn't even pull it, it just touched it and it fell apart. And I wore it every day for a year or so I put it down to natural wear and tear. But then I read on the internet that necklaces can break due to the accumulation of negative energy, and from what I understand, they don't necessarily have to be necklaces with amulets. That was my favorite necklace. Today, my mother lit incense in the house. I hate the smell. She said that it had to cleanse the energies because something evil was roaming around there. I've been very depressed, and I think she also attributed it to this spirit. The Tay Bridge Phantom by Alexander Ducombs. This was transcribed from my journal. I finally found it after all this time. Thank you ahead of time for reading this. December 28, 2005. I'm writing this because tonight something terrible happened to me. I didn't know it at the time, but my fate as a human being became mired in dark clutches of death. It's all because of some stupid fucking train. The name's Alex, and I'm writing now in this journal my mother had given to me before I started this trip. You see, I'm a performer, an actor, so to speak. I've been doing a show in Edinburgh, Scotland. It's called the Fringe Festival. Pretty much actor heaven. Any show you want to see, it'll probably be there. Festivals have been going on since maybe 1947. It's amazing. I was in a 3-person show, a small rendition of Stephen King's Misery. I played the writer, Paul Sheldon. We performed it in this dingy, dirty warehouse. It was goddamn perfect. It was small and it was intimate. Couldn't have asked for a better opportunity. Since I know I'm ignoring the train bit, frankly, I don't even know where to start. I wanted to stay in Scotland for a couple of months after we closed the show. I'd sort of fallen in love with the Gothic architecture and the deep history that kind of shit calls to me. But the weather, everything about this place was gloomy, and I loved it. Up until now, like right now, like where am I? Well, I boarded a train at Burdisland. I was heading to Dundee to see Glamis Castle, the statue of Desperate Dan. I love castles, okay? I got on the train around dusk. There's about 74 other people on this train, give or take. I'd been on a Stephen King kick, kind of ironic now that I think about it. I sat down in a seat to dig into this book called The Shining. It's about some psychic kid with daddy issues, or at least that's what my castmate said before throwing me a copy of the book to borrow. I was well into the novel when around 6 o'clock I started feeling my eyes getting very droopy and tired. This is where things went wrong. This is the one time I wish I could have stayed awake. I fucked up. I didn't know it then, but I had fucked up hard. Woke up about an hour later feeling like shit. Something smelled, and not quite like shit. That smell you get when you find a dead rat under your bed because your cats can be fuckers sometimes. I look around me and everything feels different. Feels wrong. That feeling you get when your mother or father calls you and says, "Hey, I have some bad news." That feeling in your stomach like a punch from Ollie. Everything looks old, like frontier shit. It felt like I was being goofed on or something. Maybe they had gassed me and put me on a strange train for a laugh. At least that's what I wanted to think. But nobody knows I'm here and I'm traveling alone, and that smell, holy shit, it was shoved up my nostrils, making me gag. And looking around, I also noticed I was alone. The lights were really dim. Candlelight. The fuck is going on? The engine was loud. Can't believe I could have slept through that, but it was loud. I looked outside for any sign of civilization, lights or people or fucking anything. Starting to panic. Then out of the door to the coach in front of my compartment, I could see somebody walk through the door. My anxiety subsides and I breathe a heavy sigh of relief. He was looking at the ground and his gaze finally met mine. The anxiety returned. In fact, it was skyrocketing. Something inside me was telling me, time to get the fuck off this train. So I got up and I asked the man, who, by the way, was now standing in the aisle about 6 feet from me. I catch his eyes again, though he seemed to be avoiding my sight completely. It was dark. I couldn't really make out his face, and I screamed at him because the engine was loud as shit. What's the big idea? Where the fuck are we? Why was I moved into this old smelly train? Where the hell is everyone else? And he looks at me, releases a heavy sigh, and simply points to the seats behind me. And 2 seconds ago I was alone in this part of the train, and I looked behind me and there were quote-unquote people, or at least I think they were people. They all had the same expression, maybe looking at different things, but they all had the same expression, like they really had to use the bathroom on a long road trip. Their eyes kept darting toward the window of the car, back at me, then back to the windows. They were looking for something. I don't know what, but they all looked antsy and uneasy. I look back to the man whose face finally appears in the candlelight. He introduces himself as Mr. Bouche, son of Sir Thomas Bouche. I said back to him, "Look, I don't give a rat's ass who your father is, and I swear if this is some kind of a sick joke, the first two assholes I'm coming after are you and your chicken shit father." I was mad, enraged. I usually didn't say such awful things, but I was beginning to really panic. He simply told me everything's fine and to please return to my seat. I obliged him, taking a second to regain my cool. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was just having a shitty nightmare. So I sat and began to look around to the other passengers for help. They wouldn't talk to me. None of them would talk to me. They would just look at me with that worried look. There was a storm surging outside. Everybody appeared to be on edge. Thunder was ringing in your ears. You know when you count to see how far away the storm is? Well, you count the seconds between the bolt of lightning and then the included shockwave. Well, after not getting any help from the other passengers, I counted my seat. The storm was right over us. Never been so close to lightning bolts. You could see them crack and split the trees along the sides of the train from the window. Then I noticed the clothes the passengers, they were all wearing this stuff. It felt like it had been dropped into the late 1800s. Most of the men were wearing kilts, and women were wearing that weird thing that makes your ass look really big. I think it's called a hoop skirt. Not really sure. But everybody carried that odor, that terrible smell of death and decay. Like a flower shop found at the end of days, like a time capsule of terror. Okay, now, this is the point where I start looking around the car or cameras or something. Sound equipment. This was a goof. I could feel it. There's no way I just fell asleep and fell years through the past. And then the car started to rock back and forth on the rails. You could hear the screeching on the steel wheels and the bars that we rode on. The sparks were flying past the windows as everybody began to scream, and I wailed, "What's going on? What is it?" but they only screamed. Their eyes rolled back at their heads, and the smell began to get worse. I don't know how, but I imagined it was the same smell cops get when they do a welfare check on somebody who hasn't been seen in a while. Their faces began to disappear into the darkness. Bolts of lightning, the only thing to sort of really illuminate these tortured faces. I began to lose my shit as well, grabbing a window to try and see what was up ahead. There was a large bridge about 5 miles away, only peeking out when a crack of lightning beamed forth. The screaming became more erratic, and people started for the windows and doors. And as soon as we were over the water, people started jumping out of the windows and the doors. They were disappearing into the darkness. Some stayed, crying to the arms of their loved ones, sharing what looked like one happy moment, like the stupid scene from Titanic. Sorry, I think James Cameron's a hack, but that's neither here nor there. The bridge swayed in the darkness, like a bad earthquake. I ducked into my seat, and all I could do was laugh. I know that sounds weird, but when that much terror is induced, that's the only reaction that felt appropriate to me. The laughs turned to tears very quickly. I was fucked. Jumping out wasn't happening. I can't swim. Since I was a kid, I always had a fear of drowning, so never learned. I'd just sink like a rock. My life flashed before my eyes, and it didn't take long. It wasn't done. I didn't want to go. I'd never been more scared in my life. With my hands together, and I've never really been very religious, but at this point, I'd take help from fucking anything. Thought out loud. God, if you're out there, man, I could really use some help. I know you don't owe me a thing, but I'm not done here. I still have more to do. Still haven't had kids or a wife or say goodbye to my loved ones. Don't let me die like this. The train began to really jolt back and forth. It was throwing people and luggage about violently. Then a loud thump from below the train. Screaming. Everybody left on the car was screaming. I can still hear it even now. The train felt like it leapt into the air and then jolted down. The splash of the train hitting the water. The chill of the temperature freezing your skin. The car starting to fill with water. This was it. This is how I die. I take one last look around, and there's absolute chaos. People grabbing at luggage, trying to force the windows open. It was too late. We were neck deep and the train hits the bottom of the water. I take one last big breath, tears in my eyes. I don't want to go. I love life, and this just wasn't fair. I know people tell you all the time that life isn't fair. Fuck them. They never sank to the bottom of a river in a fucking train car. So many things I wanted to do, and I'll never get to do them. A life wasted. That's why I cried. The water extinguished the candles, and the screams formed into gurgled cries and whimpers. No sound. Silence. Dark, heavy silence. The only things I could make out were the bodies beginning to float around me. Cracks of lightning still strobing the waters around me. I couldn't hold my breath anymore. I let go. I let the water into my lungs and fell into the darkness, floating. Not thinking, just existing in the darkness. After this, I thought there better be a cold beer and a naked redhead for me on the other side. And just like that, I snapped up into my seat. Looked around. I was back in the regular train. I started jumping up and down, laughing hysterically. The others on the car looking in horror. Fuck them, I thought. I'm alive. I made it. People asked me what happened, but I didn't have the courage to tell them in fear of looking like a Looney Tune. But really, I just didn't want to jinx it. When I got off the train in Dundee, I kissed the ground at the station. Then I noticed a small little plaque not far from where I was kneeling on the ground. It read, "Historical Spot. Did you know that on Sunday, December 28, 1879, this bridge collapsed, sinking a train to the bottom of the river? Witnesses say it had been the worst storm in 30 years. This happened at 7:13 p.m. There were no survivors. Only 46 of the bodies were recovered. Oh, fuck me. I've heard of ghost trains, but that was ridiculous. Still don't know to this day whether it was real or not. Frankly, I still get scared talking about it. I've had sleeping problems ever since because I start to get tired. I freak a little bit thinking of me sinking to the bottom. And the one thing that really scared me was when I came to, people on the train started complaining about my smell. And I smelled it too. It was all over my clothes like I'd been sprayed by ghastly skunks. To make a long story very short, stay away from trains. Real talk. I won't ever ride a train again. It's been a long time since my nightmare aboard the monster train, but I still feel the water in my lungs sometimes. I still get that bad feeling. I know you'll say this is bullshit, and I get that. If somebody told me this, I would start to question that person's integrity, and honestly, that's why I wrote this. So I don't have to talk about it. I can lock it up in writing. Maybe that feeling will go away someday. My best to you and yours. Working construction in a haunted house. My whole life, I've been a tad perceptive. Not psychic, but just aware. I can feel energy. That feeling you get when your body tells you to run or fight. That feeling in your stomach, hundreds of knots at once. The true scare. I got that today, at work, real talk. Been working on a house in Palo Verdes, beachfront country in Southern California. I probably pronounced that wrong. We're kind of just taking down the garage to the studs, and I can tell you, whatever is in this house was furious about it, banging and knocks and catching figures in the corner of your vision and disembodied voices and that goddamn feeling. It's just two of us. I'm pretty big, so I can tear stuff down pretty easy. The guy I'm working with is wearing wireless headphones, so he can't really hear the things I do. You didn't hear that? I would ask, and he would just shake his head. I really know the history of this house, or rather, I guess I don't. The family living there is currently living somewhere else while we remodel, and it's just day 2, and I'm starting to get freaked out. We started finishing up putting all the tools away, and then I hear it. Sounded like somebody was being killed, a scream that would induce you, probably soiling yourself. Even my partner heard it this time. Now do you hear it? Gives me a stern look. Why do you think I brought headphones, cabron? We both start nervously laughing. I start to wonder because this is daytime. Why are they so prevalent? And if any of you are like, picture didn't happen, I get that. Sounds strange, but I was really scared, and I just didn't want to make things worse. I was already worried that we were like destroying their spirits because we're kind of tearing down the walls. I think homes remember. They remember energy. I could feel it. And look, believe what you want. I'm not here to change minds or force ideals on you. I just want to get this down, and thank you for reading this. Still got a few days left on this project. Anybody else have experiences like this? Day 2 of updates. Still posting this in our lunch, and first off, thanks for all the likes. It means a lot to know there's people out there that identify with my story. Well, we came back. Last night had nightmares about zombies eating me. So there was that. Don't know what that means, but it was horrifying. Dreaded coming to the house. Opened the locked door to access the rest of the remodel. That's my dog's ears. Now, I always lock up super tight because I have a lot of tools, but when we walked in today, my stuff had been flung everywhere and I was furious, thinking kids had got in and stole my stuff. Looking around, there's 2 windows. Boarded up solid, thick plywood, an inch thick. probably 10 screws in each. Both were still boarded up solid. Then came the confusion. Trying to figure out what was taken. Nothing was missing. Just all flung at the ground. It's funny we didn't think to take a picture until after we cleaned it up. Today I'll keep my eyes open for more activity and just try to keep you guys posted. Thanks again. Scary stuff. Okay, instead of starting off telling you, look, this is real, swear on my mother's dog's grave, I saw this, I'm going to instead begin with, believe what I'm about to tell you if you want. If not, you're absolutely entitled to have doubts about my story. I don't have photo evidence, I don't have audio evidence. I just have my memories. Dark memories of a witch-like woman that haunted my house growing up. When we first moved into the house around 1996, I started having trouble sleeping. Bad trouble, and to be quite honest, it's never really gone away. I'd stay up watching Beavis and Butthead and then Nick at Night, and I'd play the Andy Griffith Show. And I'd dream of Jeannie, and at some point in the night I would get thirsty. I'd go to the kitchen to get something to drink. This was the room the Banshee was in. You could feel something watching you. You could feel something sucking energy out of you. It was cold. And when you'd go to turn on the light, it simply wouldn't work. All days this light was fine. You want to tell me how a light just doesn't work after sundown? It doesn't make sense. And it was cold. You could feel her looking at you like a sack of lunch, wanting but failing to reach out and tear you apart. Her frustrations could be felt when she would slam soda cans on the kitchen counter. It would be dead silent. Then comes a large bang from the kitchen. Suffice to say, I would be terrified going to the kitchen at night. A couple of times I'd turn back as I was leaving just to hear her or see her peering back at me. Her white eyes just like dead lights. Seriously, that's what it was like. Her face would begin in a horrid smile, and she wouldn't say anything. Just look at you and smile. Still creeps the shit out of me. Then when you'd go to return to your room, then the screams came. But not a scream others would hear. It was a scream just for you. I'd bring this up to my folks and my brothers, and there's this floating, screaming woman that haunts her kitchen. My brothers told me they've seen her too. My mom says she doesn't like going into the kitchen at night. My father didn't really pay any mind to it. Just another thing that we'd have to live around. My grades began to slip because my sleeping problems only got worse. I figured I was safe in my room. It even got to the point where I took an empty pee bottle to my bedroom because I was too scared to go to the kitchen at night. We would also find small animals completely gutted in the floor of the kitchen at night. Granted, we did have a cat, but this cat rarely went outside. It would sleep with me in my bedroom at night. Once we found a raven. It was huge, at least twice the size of my cat. My parents would always blame the cat, so I had to be the one to clean it up. Most of the time, these animals were mutilated, like flayed and destroyed. When I did sleep, I would sleepwalk. I don't know if you're familiar with sleepwalking, but it's scary as hell. Nothing like waking up to the front lawn like you're out all night being a werewolf. All I was missing was the half-eaten deer. But one of these sleepwalking ventures would lead me to try and rid my house of the spirit. I woke up in the kitchen. I was scared because I realized where I was. I started moving toward the door so I could bolt back to my room. As soon as I heard her cackling, I broke into a dead sprint. She was laughing at me, or maybe I dreamt it. Whatever was going on, I vowed to end it. My mother told me that she'd been sleepwalking too. Woke up on the front lawn just like me. Went to the internet. I read about Sage and St. Michael's Prayer. The next night I waited until everyone went to sleep. I lit the sage, wafting it throughout the kitchen and house and repeating the prayers over and over again, slamming cans and laughing in psychic screams, utter cold. Nothing would stop me. I had enough. I believed she was there, and I believed this would work. And after an hour, I stopped hearing things. She seemed to have faded out, like a person on the other half of a tin can radio. I kept going. I sat and prayed and eventually fell asleep sitting on the floor. I was awoken by my father going for some water. The light turned on. The goddamn light turned on. Even my dad was surprised. I had done it. I had beat that witch. He was startled to see his son sitting there with half a burnt bundle of sage, but sent me to bed nonetheless. Slept better than I had in weeks. Memories. Believe me or not, this is what I believe happened to me. Believe me or not, I still have dreams about her. 10 years since we left that house. I know it sounds too ridiculous, but if I've learned anything about this life, it's that there's something out there. Whether it be people from another dimension or people long, long ago dead trying to hold on to their former lives. Something out there. I feel it. I don't talk to the dead. It goes against my personal religion. Maybe growing up with a fucking banshee in your kitchen has something to do with it. I'm not sure. An alien encounter. I think I saw an alien once. It was during the 88-89 school year. 3rd grade for me. Actually, it was in my school. I'd never seen any depictions of greys at that point, and I was at school for an after-school art class in the cafeteria at Julius Marks Elementary School. Left the cafeteria to go to the bathroom. I turned a corner to go to the bathroom and felt like someone was watching me, so I turned and looked. Standing in the doorway of the class next to mine, silhouetted against the light, it was someone not human-shaped. They were no more than 4 feet tall and very skinny, with a disproportionately large egg-shaped head, and they had long, thin arms and legs for their size. Like a child, but not proportioned like a human. I was a brave kid, especially when I was on my own and didn't have to look out for someone else. I didn't scare easy, but the whole thing just felt so wrong, so freaking alien. I was terrified. Dashed into the bathroom. I must have used facilities because I was never one to wet myself. I didn't need to go anymore. And I don't remember anything about when I was in that bathroom. I don't know how I got back to the cafeteria. Shit. I can't really remember. Although I do remember being very afraid and peeking out and nothing being there. I ran back to the cafeteria and I told everybody what I just experienced. That's when I learned about aliens and what they were supposed to look like. One of the other kids drew a picture. Kind of freaked out that I can remember everything clearly except what happened in between running for the bathroom and running through the cafeteria door, other than a quick glance to see if it was there. I didn't get the impression that I was gone very long, like not even as long as I must have been gone, at least full 10 minutes. On the few occasions I've shared this story over the years, I've only gotten 2 reactions. Total disbelief and the assurance that I was just imagining something I'd seen on TV or read about, or total belief and the assurance that I was abducted that day, and they erased my memory of it. All I can say is that I know for sure that I'd never been exposed to any images of greys until that day after my experience. Until that moment, I thought of aliens as being kind of cartoonish in their appearance. Green, and remember I was only about 8 at the time, and it was the 80s right before the image of greys became commonplace. Also, although I can't remember a lot now, I'm fairly certain I could remember more until the past 10 years, so because I had a good sense of how much time had passed, and for one, it's enough for me to be fairly certain that I'm not missing time, and never really was in regards to this incident. Also, I've never had another encounter, but never had further signs of possible abductions, and I've never seen a UFO. Creepy things I've encountered in this household. Before I was home alone with my sister at the house, and it was 12 a.m. and dead of night, I was at my room. She was at her room. Someone knocked really hard and repeated it many times. It was as if it was eager to come into her house. It then shouted, "Ket buksan mo ako," which means open the door. It was using the voice of my brother. So I shouted next to the room so he'd be able to hear, and I told her to open the door for my brother. While still knocking eagerly at the door, my sister then shouted at her room, "Wala namang kumakatok." Wala namang kumakatok, which means that there's no one that knocked. I got scared and creeped out since it was really loud to hear bangs of the door, eagerly wanting to come in, but then my sister shouted those words. It suddenly stopped. I'm sure I wasn't hallucinating things. I don't have any mental disorder. Another story of my experience. 2. About 8 or 9 p.m., my dad, sister, and I finished eating dinner. It's when it was about to black out, and I was tired, so I slipped on the sofa. After a while, we heard a loud, distorted, angry meowing sound coming from the tall grass beside our house. It was really loud, and the sound wasn't chill. It wasn't like any other cats. The meowing continued. It was really angry and distinctly. I know that it was like any other cat. So my dad checked the flashlight where the meowing was coming from. Even shouted to that creature. But the meowing even kept getting worse. Kept pestering us. So my dad threw salt and just closed the windows and got inside our house. Encounter 3. Since I'm always home alone, I often encounter creepy things. There was one time that the power was out, so being home alone, I got scared. It was just me and my cats in the house, but I needed some source of light, so I tried lighting up a fire outside the house. And at the time, when I was about to light up a fire, my cats were meowing furiously at another cat. It was a black cat. Now, I don't believe in any of the paniniwala in the Philippines that a black cat is an aswang or bad luck since I'm a cat lover. But perhaps the cat was different based on its meowing. Can't really describe it, but my cats were angry at the black cat. Being not able to see in the dark, I flashlighted them and shooed them away. But when the flash reflected them, my cat's eyes had reflection, which is normal because if you flash a light to any animal, their eyes would reflect. But something wasn't right about that cat. The cat's eyes didn't reflect at all. Then the looks of the eyes were kind of angry. Haunted in the Bayou. I'm a medical examiner who shares her stories of paranormal activities that have happened in and around my morgue. This case took me to New Orleans. I had a case of an alleged serial killer. Our victims had the same markings and looks. I had a colleague of mine in that office during the autopsies. So I went to have lunch with her and confirm my thoughts on the case and had to inform detectives if confirmed. They knew of my visit and suspicion, but we had nothing confirmed. We go to lunch in downtown New Orleans, and we sit and chat about the case, and once we finish eating, she took me on a tour of New Orleans. We eventually took a road trip around the area. A friend has this shack in the bayou, just a storage place for hunting and fishing supplies. We decided to go check it out as I'd never been there. It's around 3 p.m. when we arrive at the shack. We're sitting on a little deck area having a few drinks when it felt odd, like someone was watching me, not something, someone. I looked around and there was no one. I mean, no one. How could there be? The only solid area is what we were on and the path ahead of us. I tried to shake it off, but I really couldn't fully get it out of my mind. I instantly feel a cold pressure on my left shoulder. I see nothing. She screams a high-pitched scream. I get up and spring about 20 yards and then turn around to her to crash into me during the panic. We ended up with such crazy injuries from it. I landed on my right side, but fractured my left clavicle where the hand was. She was mute for 3 weeks. Something that scream even shouldn't have caused without other injuries prior. Who knows what really happened, or who she really was, but my colleague swears she saw a woman in white with a broken left clavicle, so her arm was just hanging, mouth open like she was screaming but silent. She swears on it, and with her reaction and vow to never go back or within a 10-mile radius of it, she sends the assistant medical examiner she's called for those cases near it. I'll never know what she saw exactly besides what she told me because she's the only one who visually saw anything really, and could be some wild reason of why this happened or who that was. I think it finally happened. They came home with her. Help. If you don't know me, I'm a medical examiner who's had many experiences with the paranormal. And yes, we do try our best to debunk situations before even sharing them with anyone. I've had very few experiences that were outside of the morgue. And for this experience, it was not my own, but it's a story of my colleague at the morgue. My colleague, let's call her Anna, was leaving the morgue 2 weekends ago, after finishing up paperwork for me. I came in early so she could continue her family things, and she offered to file paperwork. As I went out of my way to help her have a work-life balance, Anna is a loving mother of a 5-year-old boy. Let's call him Tim. Tim loves Anna so much, always wanting Mama to at least be around him. That night she came home and got in the shower, got ready for bed, went to kiss Tim goodnight, but his door was open. His door was never open because he never figured out the child guard. He was sound asleep in his little kind of car bed, perfectly still and rather peaceful. The door was the only thing off. Anna brushed it off, gave him a kiss goodnight, shut the door, and went to the bedroom. She asked her husband about it, but said that he had shut the door. She figures that he managed to crawl out of bed and get it open somehow, and went back to sleep. Didn't check cameras at this point. All's good, and they had an explanation that made sense and went to bed around 1:30. At around 3, Tim runs into their bedroom crying and yelling. He's terrified. Anna and her husband have no idea what's happening. They don't know how he got out of his room. The look on the baby cam, he was asleep as the door opened this time, seen by the hallway light as the camera doesn't face the door. Plus no shadows that should be there. It woke him up. He turned and said something, but Anna said that it didn't come through their audio, nor could she read lips, as it wasn't that great of a camera. It was an old one. They had it from like another family member when the other one stopped working a week prior. It's set up because their son has a health condition, so they have it only facing the bed, not the rest of the room. All Tim can tell Anna is that there's a big man with a hat and glowing eyes who said to go away. And since then, there have been a few instances of things being out of place or random doors opening, but Tim never saw the man again. He will randomly say things to his friend who's a little girl, but we haven't really noticed anything paranormal about that. So we think that maybe it's him and his imagination. I know he does have a vivid imagination, but in this case, it wasn't sunshine and Legos. It was a dark, big man. It could be his imagination and all a coincidence of something else. But we'd like your opinions. Is it paranormal? Is it something else? Do we just need to actually get some sleep for once? I don't know. I have no idea what is in my new home. My husband and I just recently moved into a small home by my old high school. It's not a school anymore due to a lot of issues within the staff. I love the familiarity of the area, though. It has a great walking path nearby. The river is right across the street. All of these things helped us choose our first real home. A few nights pass and I put on Scooby-Doo. Judge me however you want, I will not apologize for it, which was on Max streaming. We have a Roku remote that has Netflix, Apple, Disney Plus, and Max. Oh, and Max as the button options on the remote. All was good. He was already asleep and I fell asleep with Scooby-Doo on. Well, we wake up in the morning and it's on YouTube, and I don't really think anything of it as my husband is always on YouTube. He looked at me and asked when I turned on YouTube last night, which I hadn't. There's no button and you have to pick a profile to get into it as well. It's a pain. We brush off this experience like technical difficulties, which is very possible. Maybe 2 days later, my husband's at work and I'm at home finishing reports since I had the day off. Sitting on the couch with my papers, and I'm charting all of my notes into a proper format for my personal use and then putting it into an official report. Something everybody knows that I do. Anyway, I hear a cough and I think maybe the neighbor's home and it's just, being so quiet, maybe that's why I can hear them. So I let it slide. But then I swear my husband calls my name from the bedroom. I go ice cold. I go to the window to check for my car, as that was the vehicle he took that morning. It wasn't there. There was no way it could be my husband. It happened 3 more times. I decided to take a walk outside, and I have to be going crazy. That's what's running through my head. It couldn't be my husband, but that was definitely his voice. I breathe and walk, and I let it move to the back of my mind, and I get home and continue to work. I went to the fridge to grab my water bottle. I keep it in the fridge so it's cold. But anyway, I bend down to grab it, and it's at the bottom shelf, and I hear steps behind me, and I think, that could be a roommate. He's staying with us for a month. He's kind of up here for work, a close friend. So I think he's just walking over to the fridge too, and I see a pair of shoes behind me that didn't look anything like either of them then. Any of the shoes that they would wear. And I spun around to find absolutely no one. Can't even begin to explain the feelings I have just being in this house. It's just suffocating. I don't know what to do. Husband agrees something's wrong and I'm very organized and intelligent, but when I'm in this house I feel dumbed down and messy. Could this all be some random mental response to something else? Or possibly. Can't think of a reason that anything would cause that. It's one thing to be used to these events all at work, but being at home and things happening there is starting to take a toll. Ask Reddit. I had an online dating profile back in the early 2000s. I was young and never really had a girlfriend, so I figured I'd try online dating. I was matched with one woman who's a little older than me. Her name was Lori. We chatted in instant messenger for a bit, and I finally called her. We decided to go meet up one day. The meeting spot was in the park in the middle of the day. So the night before the date, I'm going to sleep, and I have 2 of the most vivid dreams I've ever had. The first dream, I'm driving to the date, and it's snowing like crazy. On the way, I lose control, and I have a wreck. I can see myself just dying in the dream. So I wake up a little bit rattled from the dream, and I calm down and go back to sleep. Then I have the next dream. I'm in my parents' basement. I'm looking for something. Then I hear this noise coming from above, and it sounds like somebody's knocking on the floor from above. With every knock, the noise gets louder and louder. Boom, 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 boom. Then it starts moving as if someone's walking across the room above me. So I follow it, and it leads me to the bottom of the basement steps. Looking up the stairs, and the noise is louder, and finally it stops. The door slowly creaks open. My dad walks through. He's carrying a cane made of gold. Stands there and is looking at me, but his eyes are closed. So I ask him what's wrong. He then opens his eyes that are glowing red. He then opens his mouth to speak, and I hear what I can only describe as the most insane noise I've ever heard. It sounded like static and screams of fear, almost as if a demon was speaking through a broken speaker. So I wake up, I'm cold and I'm sweating and shaking. It's morning and my date is only a few hours. I'm so rattled from the dreams I decide not to even go. So I call her to cancel, and this is what happens. A man picks up the phone, asks for Lori. He replies with, "Who's calling?" This is, insert name here. We're supposed to meet up around noon. He says, "Well, this is her husband." "I don't think so." I quickly say there's been a mistake, and I hang up, and I'm completely freaking out. A few minutes later, she calls me crying and yelling, saying I've ruined her life, etc., etc. I yell back for her not to call me anymore, contact me again, and I hang up and start to put some of the pieces together. She only wanted to call at night, and she'd talk really quiet, and she wouldn't send any new pictures either. Also wanted to meet in a park in the middle of the winter. I guess my subconscious was telling me that I shouldn't, but I started to head outside for smoke to clear my head, and it begins to snow. Creatures in the dark. Alone at home should be calm and quiet, until my nights weren't as quiet as I thought they would be. It started small, like a shadow of a little boy dashing across the room at night, to random items dropping off the shelves, even when the windows were closed. But no nights were like that night. Due to the bright lights from my neighbor's house, I decided to close my curtains. As it falls into darkness and silence envelops me, I soon fell asleep. A couple taps, I reckon I'm dreaming. Couldn't be real. Bam! A loud noise woke me up. I wasn't in my bedroom. Seated at the head of the long dining table, looking down the long dark hallway, red lights starting to fill the end of the hall. Creaking open the door on the left fills the hall with deep red lights. Then the right side as each door creaks open toward me. The once dark hallway drowns in red. Soon, long fingers appeared at the end of the hall. I tried to move, but I was glued to the chair I was in. The shadow at the end of the hallway grew bigger as the creature moves closer. Then it appears tall, slim, with teeth so long and sharp. It grins as it stares, and in a flash of a second, it sped toward me. 3:15 a.m. The bright light of my clock stared back at me. But it wasn't the only thing staring back. Two tall figures, barely visible, stared back. And between them was a closed door-like structure with bright red lights illuminating the dark room. Am I still dreaming? I asked myself. I closed my eyes, and fearing what I would see when I opened them again, took a peep instead. 2:57. Room was empty. Bright from the lights in the hallway, and my curtain was open. Everything felt calm once again, except I couldn't go back to sleep. Not after that happening. See ya.